Hello, everyone. Welcome back to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audio Visual Services, and I'm once again joined by my co-host and Creative Technology Director, Mr. Ryan Finch.
Hello. It's good to be back. Good to be here. We're busy. We're cranking away, and we're still finding time for you all, which I think is a pretty nice thing.
That was very Southern of you.
I don't
The you all.
I don't know how
It's
it was
kind of
Southern.
like y'all.
I didn't drop a hard y'all. It was a you all.
I
In
felt
fact, it
like
was
that's where
actually
you were
not
trying to
Southern.
go.
I
So
honestly, we should all start saying y'all. That is one thing I believe. It is so much easier. So there you go.
I don't agree
First
with
tip,
you. But
y'all.
either way, is that today's tip? Is that
Anywhere we can get them.
Okay. Well, it's obviously it's spring season in New York, so this is a busy time here at Corporate AV, and I'm sure all around we got lots of work, and we love lots of work. I mean, we did pretty much have a 2-year vacation for our entire industry, so let's keep this going. We like this better.
We'll take it.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
Either way, yeah. Either way.
All right, y'all.
Today we're going to actually take you behind the scenes and discuss some tips to make your show run a little, run smoothly. That's always what we're shooting for. But before we do, Mr. Finch, can you tell people how they can find us?
I can. You can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube Live. You can do that every Wednesday at 1 p.m. And while you're there, you should drop us a comment. You should be part of the show. You should ask your questions rather, and we will answer them. You ask, we answer. That's how this works. And then while you're there, you can also like, comment, share, subscribe, all the above. Super appreciated. And if you missed the show, be sure to check out our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/corporate-AV. Pretty sure that's what it is. Oh, yeah, it is. It's right there. It's on a banner. I forgot about that. Where you can find the rest of our AVX videos and bite-sized pieces to be shared later on Instagram and Facebook, and now LinkedIn as well. So you're going to have to update that banner. How about that?
Oh, we got an update, huh? All right.
Yeah.
Make some updates.
Tackling the media.
Wow. That's pretty good. I like it. I like making updates. We like forward progress. That is one of our favorite things here. But let's get into this thing. On our last episode, we actually had a really fun and enlightening, in many ways, discussion with Jeanette Gisbert, Executive Director of Volunteer New York. And, she's a leader in the volunteer community, which, as Ryan Finch's friend, John Maxwell, said, is one of the more difficult groups to lead, right? You're not paying them. You can't make them do things. So you have to actually inspire them. And she's really doing a great job. And, some of the things I took out of her discussion was that her work really has purpose and meaning. And I felt like it was really a great episode. So again, if you didn't see it, go to the YouTube channel, check it out. I thought Jeanette was fantastic, and we look forward to having her on another time.
I agree. I really enjoyed her conversation. Also, I do remember her saying, "Ryan, your questions are so insightful." I'll never forget that. I actually got that tattooed on my arm right here. Ryan, your questions are so insightful.
Is that what that little piece of green was on your arm? Is that what?
It's not green. Oh my gosh. Anyway, this week,
like a 6-point.
Now we're moving on. We're moving on. This week, we're going to be taking you behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. This is going to be a new segment here where we talk about actual AV things. And again, as Joe said before, the goal is to help you produce smoother events, manage your AV production vendor better, have a more successful, results-driven experience. Oh my God, it's like what the show is all about. Wow. So this week, this week we're going to be talking about creating an effective run of show, also known as a Q to Q or a show flow. Different terminology, somewhat different meaning in some cases. And really, we're going to be telling you about what we're actually looking for and what information you need to share with us in order to produce the program.
That is a great topic because I think this is an often overlooked area. And many times, I know I'm on site a lot, I get documents that are either missing information or they're in like two different places.
Two different places. My
or
favorite.
It's kind of like left to us to try and interpret what they really want. And we can do that when there's time and there's rehearsals, but a lot of times we're also getting it late, and so we haven't actually gone through it much, and we don't know the real purpose and the meaning of like the segment. So I think this is a great topic, and one that can really help all of our clients.
And I completely agree, obviously, but also, you said getting it late, and there's also multiple versions, right? So there are times where we get it late and then we're able to doctor it up and make it look the way we need to see it, which we're going to talk about. But then you change something and it's like, now I got to do all the work again. So at least if we're all speaking the same language, there could be one document to rule them all. Man, I wish we had digital effects. I'd be hammering them right now.
Don't we create some digital effects for the show and make it better? I'm just saying.
Wow, that's a great idea. We should do that. So unfortunately, y'all, we're going to have to stop working on events for a while because Joe wants special effects on this show.
I mean, we all know that I like special effects. I mean, do you want to see
confetti?
Do.
We'll work on it.
Do you want to see confetti?
Do I need to bring my virtual assistant back? That was special effects. All right. Anyway, we've lost topic here. So let's get started. Let's get started with the purpose of this document and identify what pieces of information that we actually need in it. Again, the purpose is to give us a step-by-step guide of what is actually happening at each moment of the show. So this is what everyone knows what to expect, what to do. We know when so-and-so goes up on stage, that's when the lights are supposed to go on, and then that person's going to cue the video, and the house lights should come down, and the stage wash should come down, but then roll the video, and then when we're done with the video, we want to go to the next slide. These are all things that we need to prepare ahead of time. It's tough to kind of wing it, and we've done plenty of winging it, but it's good to kind of have a plan. So let's start with the format of this type of event, of this type of document rather. So Excel is a standard Microsoft Excel. It's a spreadsheet, right? It's a table-based program. Word is also fine, right? We're looking for things that people actually use, that they have access to, so that everyone can open the file, whether it's on your phone or it's on your laptop or, it's on one of our show computers. We're working with programs that are commonly used. In bigger productions, I should add, there are sometimes softwares used that are just specifically for technical cues, something like stagetimer.io, to name, one of many. There are other tools when the scale and the complexity goes up, but for most of the programs, I think, everyone who, we're connected with, for the most part works on, it's okay to work with, a program like that. I think Joe has some examples.
I might have an example if you'd like to see one.
Please.
Well, here you go.
Here's a spreadsheet.
Right here.
That's very clean and organized and sequential and chronologically based. It's almost like that's helpful to us.
Well,
that says stagetimer.io on it.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
A
lot of times this is offered free on their website. You can go and download it. They're just one of the software. A lot of theaters and especially repetitive productions will use software because they tie it into their agenda, and and so if you're doing that every single day, then that's probably a good thing. In our case, many of our events are either one-off events or they're done by people who don't do it every day. And so I think our job is to try to simplify things for them.
Absolutely. And you know what? This actually is a good example of one of my next points, which is standard fonts. And it's not all caps. The funny thing about all caps is it's kind of hard to read. And number two is it can be used to create emphasis. But if it's everywhere, then nothing is emphasized. That's like if everyone is special, then no one is. If all the text is caps, then nothing is caps. So it just makes it worse, if I'm being honest with you. There are times where, I'll put in all caps, hit record, right? I'm trying to draw attention to that. But if everything were caps, then that no longer stands out. And sometimes you need things to stand out. So use caps bolded text for highlighted items, right? Things that you need to stick out. We do tend to rely less on color coding. I know it makes everyone happy when things are organized and color coded, and that's beautiful and wonderful. But it can be really hard to read in the dark. Certain colors, it's like it just ends up being much more difficult to work with. And then, our tech areas are dimly lit in general, but also we may not have access to a color printer on site. And now things are different shades of gray or not there at all. And then we go, damn, this isn't helpful at all.
Well, you find yourself with using your phone, or you have a flashlight, or you get some other light that you're kind of holding over it and trying to read it. And,
And
I
you know
think,
what? You know what you're not doing when you're doing that? Hitting the more important buttons. It's hard to read and hit the buttons and hold a flashlight at the same time. But that's, a lot of time these guys are like, they got like tentacles, and their hands are touching 8 different things at the same time. And that little bit of like, I can't read this actually jams up the process a little bit.
Well, you make a good point, because if you can't read it, it might not happen. So I got an example. Just a couple of weeks ago, I got a lot of greens. Wow. And right in here, there's a timestamp, very specific. I don't know if you can read it, but I had an extremely difficult time of reading that. And it was something that was critical to know. So, fortunately, we did have some other material. And so, you could recognize it, and that was all good. But I'm going to take this one. But let's look back at, I think we got to talk about what needs to be on the sheet. So let's bring this guy back up here for a second. I'm just going to make it a little smaller. We can see the some of the titles here. So on the front, all right, they have a Q number. I got to say, we don't always need that. That's kind of very particular. But what we do need to know is the time. So the time of the Q, which we already know is not going to be exact. So for everybody who's freaking out, like, oh, we're 5 minutes behind already, we know that it's kind of a dynamic time. We're just looking to get a sense of when it's coming, and then what follows what. But certainly,
funny thing is, this is actually a difference. I know we'll talk about that, but this is actually a difference between in-person events and virtual events. Because there are times where virtual events, they go, oh, well, at about 7 o'clock, we're going to show this. And I'm like, I don't care what time it's at. It's about what comes before and after. Like it could be completely a different time, or if it's all pre-recorded, it's going to be whatever time it is. And there is no changing that. So the sequence becomes more important. But in any case, I digress.
You're right. Well, no, that's actually a good point. I think we'll look at the in-person side first, and then we'll come to that. But certainly we need to know what the Q is. Now, you guys saw as we go through, Ryan tells you how you can find us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. You can find us on Facebook. Those are cues, right? It's
somebody
like
clicks magic. A button.
Somebody does something, and we're kind of basing it on something that's being said or seen, right? When the welcome song ends, this is going to happen next. What's happening, a little description, obviously what's happening with video, right? This is screen graphics, screen A, screen B. That can be camera, that can be a video is going to play, that can be a certain slide, it can be some other visual, but we need to know exactly what it is.
So one thing I want to pause here for a second, because one thing that's nice about a spreadsheet versus a Word document, I'll just make my case, right? Let's say there are 2 screens on the outside and one in the middle, and the one in the middle shows different things than the one on the outside. You could very easily just have a separate column, and you can add as many columns as you need to, so that we know what change is supposed to happen and in what place, and it stays organized. Sometimes when we see screen 1 does this, screen 2 does this, and it's like inline text, that can be a little tough to follow along with. So spreadsheets, again, do tend to work a little bit better in my eyes, but
I agree. I find them easier to work with, to add and to adjust, to be honest. But just back to the content of what needs to be on here. If there was a lighting cue, are lights going down? Are we changing colors? Is there a moving sequence? We just need to know what to do. What's happening with sound? Is there a microphone, a specific microphone being used then? Is there a song that's going to be played for walk up? Is there a cue in the middle after they say this, play this sound bite? We just need to know. And this is pretty much laid out, nice and easy. And there's some notes there if there was something specific, especially if there's like an alternate cue. Like hey, if so and so doesn't make it or doesn't show up, then we have to go to this. We got to skip ahead, kind of.
And that's Joe. That's a really good point to make too. Is you can create room for us to figure things out on the fly. You can make space for dynamics if you've pinned down everything else 100%, right? Like if you take all the guesswork out of 99% of the show, and then it's that 1%, hey guys, Mo, I need you to just read the room on this one and decide what to do. It's much easier for us to make a good decision and to nail it when everything else has already been worked out, right? If you're kind of winging it and you come out of it and go, man, all things considered, I think it went pretty well. It's better to go, we nailed it 100%, even with the dynamics built in, right?
Well, because then we're hitting the intention, right, of what we're trying to do. Yeah. And that's what the entire team wants. They're trying to execute your vision. And, I think you just got to think it through. And that's what all this is. This is all pre-planning and pre-work. And that's why it's important, because it then gets you to the rehearsal and then you practice it. And, and then typically, I know for many of the events I end up working on, somebody comes in, they kind of run through things really quickly. They don't actually go through everything. They just run through certain segments. And then we have to do it all again after they walk away, because we need to get the rhythm and the flow of how something's going to transition. And then we usually do it another time. And then we're like, all right, now we got it. Like now we know how it works together and the feel that we're going for. But it does take practice.
It does. And, one other thing, again, speaking to the columns, right, Joe talked about lighting cues, audio cues, video cues. Well, think about, from a staffing perspective, my audio engineer is following the audio cues. The video engineer is following the video cues. Lighting might be following the lighting cues, or one of those two might be hitting the lighting cues because there's only one. But it also illustrates the point of why having a conversation about this ahead of time might be helpful. Because if we realize that there is, an audio cue that happens at the same time as we're rolling a video, at the same time as the lighting is supposed to do something, well, that is 3 different things happening at the same time. And that could be cause for having a staffed lighting person to run the console. So things like that. It's like we get to game plan it based on what needs to happen. And there are bottlenecks. And in order to create that impact, in order to make the moment that is perfect, that perfect moment where the auctioneer says, how about this? Or something like that. I don't know. That was off the cuff. And then the video rolls and the lights change and everyone goes, I need to give you more of my money. That is the type of thing that, we're all after. And so, if we get to game plan it a little bit better, we get to do a better job with that. Joe, I have one other tip. Do we want to, is it okay if I talk about the tip when it comes to file names?
Well, you know what? Let me take this guy off the screen then. I mean, this sounds important.
It is important. Hold on. I'm going to create impact. It's kind of like when you have a cue and you need everyone to pay attention. File names. For some reason, this tends to be the most common thing that I see happen, which is you're talking about a video that you know inside and out, and you refer to it as that's the impact video. And you might even write it in your run of show as the impact video. And the file that I see in a folder or in 15 emails with 15 different pieces of content is, H264 ... MOV 346 V1 V2 final. And I go, I don't know what the impact video is, right? So that's when we say, put the file name in the run of show, in the queue to queue. Or make sure the file name matches what you're writing down. Speak the same language, and then that even comes to versions, because the versions are even another thing. It's like, oh, is that the new one or the new one?
Is that the
And that happens
final
all the time.
final or the final
Final
version
V2
2?
final, right? So that, and again, it's inescapable, right? Even just having done a fair amount of video production ourselves, it's inescapable that there's a little tweak that needs to happen, or something has to change, and that's okay. But we need to be able to keep track of that in a way that nothing slips through the cracks. Actually, we have one group that will purposefully not send us everything. They'll say, look, I have it all. It's all organized. Here's your run of show. You're going to have everything. It's all going to come at once because I'm not giving you 6 versions of everything. And I say, thank you. Thank you for that. Because that's very helpful. Because then if I get 95% of the content and I know, hey, if one of them changes, I can keep that straight. But if I get 5 versions of everything, it's really easy to make a mistake. And so that's why naming naming conventions, and then actually writing that in the queue to queue is super helpful, super important.
Absolutely, that's a great tip. I probably have an
I feel
example.
pretty good about it.
I probably have an example.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Let's see what I got.
Look at that. Boom.
So, in this particular, there's good and bad to this, and I don't want to say bad. There was some challenges with this, but there's also some good, right? Video number 6, PowerPoint slide 15, slide 16. Very specific, right? We're talking about the same thing. Now everybody on the team is looking at the exact same thing. They know which one it is. In this particular project, there was 18 cues, and then there was I don't know, 40 slides or something. But so there's 18 video cues, and then there's some sound cues, and so we had to put them all in order to make sure that we could get this thing right. Here's some of the challenge. See how now this is a Word document, like Ryan was talking about. 807 to 815. But this seems like there's a lot of stuff kind of happening that time. It would be much easier if this was actually in the specific order. So if you see here, it's slide 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. All right, well, I get the sense that we're following along. That makes sense. I'm with you there. Play on a loop or a shuffle. Doesn't usually go like that. Just when you're putting them in order, they kind of go in order. So you can't then go back and loop them unless you're doing it a different way, which makes it a little more challenging. But either way, there all these things like there. It doesn't really give you clear cut, specific instructions. So there's a lot of guesswork. And in this particular case, then someone had to actually sit with us who wrote this. But if they didn't, if this was written out in the previous like cue that we were looking at there, right? If it was written out like that, they would not have needed to be there, and they could have done something else for the event.
Right. I like to that example. So you see in the same section, in one column there's videos, and in another column there's slides, and there's absolutely no way for us to know what comes before what. So if you've ever been at an event where they go, so let's take a look at that video now, and it's like it doesn't play right away. It's kind of, there's like an awkward pause and you're waiting to watch it and everyone's just kind of sitting there waiting. It's because we were ready to queue up slide number 17, and then he went, did he just say roll a video? Oh no. Okay, video. I guess we're going video now. So if that is sequential, right, we don't have that issue. So again, you got to think of it as somebody who doesn't know your program inside and out. They're following along with your train of thought, and the clearer you can make it, the less instances of those awkward pauses or the wrong thing playing. We want to make sure everything is just clear and organized and chronological. First, second, third, fourth.
Makes it much easier. Let's we'll go back to this one that we used as an example before. And this is also in Word. So again, it's a little bit challenging, but fine, but you can still use it. There was a lot of good with this one as well. A few little things that were a little more challenging, but a lot of good. In the sense that we were looking to try to play down in the where it says AVQs during someone's remarks, there's a song, and they gave us they gave us the words that were our cue, but there was no way for us to know how far into the program they were going to say that. So we actually had to use a full script at the same time in order to identify, okay, so is that like 10 minutes in or is that like 10 seconds in? And it turns out we actually rolled it twice, very close to each other, but there would be no way to really kind of gauge how close in this without, again, using that other tool and looking at the full script. And of course, the script changes a lot, right? That changes until the very last minute. And then you'll see people up there, they'll be crossing things out and they'll be saying, no, 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 we got to do this in this order. And that affects us because we're trying to execute on that vision. It's just now there happen to be several other things at the same time that is not really noted here. So we did have a camera on screen, and then we did go to a graphic. Now the graphic was noted, some slide on screen, then switch to IMAG. But it's also in like a story. It's in a paragraph form. It's in a story. Many times our technical team, they don't have the ability and the time to read all of that. So they're looking for very quick, right? They're looking for quick cues because it's usually supposed to be fast. So reading, like, there's a lot for them to read because they have to usually do 2 or 3 things at the exact same kind of time. You got to hit like 3 buttons. They got to do this. And it makes it very challenging. So that's where some of those things are, they can be worked on a little bit. I do have one that's, this one's actually done by a stage manager. And you can see just how organized it is. I know it's a little hard to read and it is color coded. The stage manager just has, they have more time, I guess, and better lighting than we do. But,
and their own laptop physically set up backstage.
Which is what they're looking at. So they're looking at, okay, I'm calling out to video. I'm calling, all right, lighting, we're coming to your cue, right? They're going through each section and it's all timed and it's all, here's what's going to happen. And here's what the stage manager is going to do. And let's make sure that table is in place at that time and podium's going to get moved. Like it all has to kind of work together so that everybody knows when the next thing's coming. Okay, I'm going to prep for the next thing that I have to do. And, there could be 20 people that all have to prep for their thing. So this is an example of one that's done by a technical producer. It's just a little bit different in the thought process.
One thing I think is important to point out, too, is that when all of this goes flawlessly, to everyone in the audience, it's effortless, right? It just happened. I didn't even think about it. It was just presented to them and they watched it and it was great. And, but they don't realize that there are, 8 people that are all in lockstep, not even sitting next to each other, in different areas of a room. They're all in perfect synchronicity. And that's what this is alluding to here, is that it's going to look effortless. It's going to go completely unnoticed by everyone in the room. In order to get that level of success, this is the level of coordination that's involved.
It's a good point. Hey, Ryan, did you want to show some of the differences on a virtual side as opposed to the in-person events?
Yes, I would. Here's a quick sample. Obviously, I don't have a whole lot of detail filled in. We are back to a spreadsheet for virtual. I would have to insist on using a spreadsheet because there's a lot more detail, I think, that needs to go into every scene and every segment. In this case, the process is really kind of visualizing things ahead of time. And so, filling this in, before the show is not just, important. It's mandatory, right? We can't wing a virtual production the way that we could an in-person production. So everything has to be crafted ahead of time. Everything has to be planned out. And so in this case, what you'll see is it's similar in terms of the structure. It's similar in terms of, chronology. We're following this, then this, then this, then this. And that's actually even more important, I would say, in a virtual production, because if you think about it, You know, like somebody else can just run up on stage and change the schedule if somebody, you know, is in the restroom. You know, that can happen on in a in-person production, but in a virtual production, everyone needs to know who comes first, second, third, and fourth, because otherwise you end up with And so now I'll turn it back to John.
John, can you hear
Oh,
me?
hey, hi there. Yes. So and now you're off the rails, right? Everybody needs to know exactly what comes first, second, third, and otherwise, and that is especially true for us. Then we also have things like lower thirds and different graphics that come into play. So it's a lot more visually oriented. But we also
Ryan,
need to
what's a lower third? What's a lower third?
A lower third. That's a great question. Well, actually, right as I was pointing, it went away. Nailed it. Well, that's kind of a lower third, right? It's positioned in the lower third of the screen, and it's a graphic. Some call them, was it Chiron?
Chiron.
I don't. That's TV broadcast terminology, but there's different words for it. But it's a graphic that's on the screen, typically in the lower third of the rectangle, and a lot of the time it's for a name and title. Or a text to give information, or additional resources, or check us out on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. So anyway, those are the things that we need spelled out. There's a lot more intricacy, I would say, to the detail. Text Joe. Don't text that number. It's a landline. It's going to go nowhere. But you can call it. That's pretty funny. Anyway, so virtual, a little bit different, but the premise, the purpose is the same, which is we need to know what happens and when, wherever it needs to happen.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's the point of today's discussion and the behind the scenes type of comments we're having today, and Ryan, do we have a takeaway maybe people can have for this?
Run of show, make it into a Q2Q format for the program itself, either Word or more preferably Excel. Focus on chronology, things happening in order. What happens first, second, third, otherwise. And that is specifically as relates to AV cues, stage cues, lighting cues, audio, video, whatever it is that needs to happen, document it in chronology, in chronological order. And that is a way that we'll have the most amount of success, and the way things are going to go exactly the way you want it to. We make the most amount of impact. So do it.
That was nice. Very good. Is there a physical takeaway maybe we can send to people after the show?
Oh, yes, there is. I forgot about that. Yes, we are going to put some sample runs of show, Excel spreadsheet versions. We're going to put a link to that in all of the channels. So wherever you're watching, you should be able to find one. We need to have a link in bio. Joe doesn't even know what that is. Check out the link in bio.
I don't know.
Joe, what's a link in bio?
I have no idea.
What platform is it for?
LinkedIn.
That's your show, folks.
Dude, I don't even know what you're
Anyway, more resources will be available to you on whichever platform you are watching, probably except Instagram, because we don't right now have a link in bio. But we need to have a link in bio.
We didn't even have one. It was a trick question.
Yeah, swipe up. Swipe up.
Oh, man.
I got to get Alexis on this. She'll help us with that. I did. I set you up big time. Hello, fellow children.
No big deal. Well, listen, this seems like a great time to wrap it up. But, again,
it does.
You got some tips. You know what we're looking for. We're looking for things to be in order, right? Exactly what's going to happen when, a step-by-step process we can follow. And, that's just going to make everybody's show run smoother. It's going to put everybody on the same page. And, you had a couple other tips, of course, to make sure all the files are labeled the exact same in your script, in your run a show, in the actual file folder when we're giving it, given the material. But these are great tips, and hopefully everybody gets something out of today. Mr. Finch, do you have anything that you'd like to say to tell people how to find
you? Can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube Live. You can do that every Wednesday at 1 p.m. While you're there, you just drop us a comment, be part of the show, ask your questions. We will answer them live. And you can also like, comment, share, subscribe, all the above. Much appreciated. If you missed this show, check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/corporate AV, to see our video history, our video discography, if you will. And you can also find some bite-sized pieces chopped up on Instagram and on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Booyah.
Oh, and look, it made it to the lower third.
Look at you on the fly. Interesting.
Okay. There you go. There you go. Right, well, that's our show for today, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get those Q to Q show flow / run of shows tightened up a little bit so we can all have a great experience. That's all from here. We're signing off. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao. And whatever he says next is going to just be worse.